Welcome everyone to Gamer Meld. I do apologize for not getting a video out yesterday, and I know that this is a talking head video, but hear me out. I've actually been on a cruise for the past couple days, and it's been super nice. Unfortunately, the internet is pretty much horrible here, and I'm on my laptop, so I figured that this would really just be the best way to do it. But don't worry, because once I get back, I will go back to my normal format. Either way, I do have some great stories to go over, so let's get to it. Our first story for today comes from John Petty Research, and this is actually really interesting. This is what they've done. This is as far as their research on the Q2 findings of GPUs used in PCs. So this is just in the PC markets. We're not talking mobile or anything like that. And first up, they found that we saw a sequential increase by 0.6% in the GPU market for PCs in Q2 2019. Now, we did see a decrease year to year of 10.4%. So of course, while it is doing better, it's not enough to completely overtake the giant boom and even just the subsequent buying of GPUs that happened around the cryptocurrency market boom. One really interesting thing as well is that AMD shipments have increased by 9.8%, while Nvidia's have remained flat, and Intel's shipments have actually decreased by 1.4%. With that said, the biggest thing that we have here is actually in this little graph right here. You can see that AMD, for the first time in I believe it is 4 years or so, has actually overtaken Nvidia in GPU sales. That's a really big deal, especially with Nvidia touting all of their RTX GPUs as well as their GTX GPUs. I mean, this is a huge deal. AMD has not only remained relevant during this, but they've actually overtaken Nvidia. Now, of course, Intel is way higher, but that's only, we understand that they do not have discrete GPUs. This is purely because of their integrated GPUs that are sold with their CPUs. So that's really all that is. But once again, whenever it comes to actual discrete graphics cards, AMD has finally overtaken Nvidia. So this is really great news for AMD fans, and really just a wild story overall. Next up for today, we have even more great news for AMD, this time regarding their CPU sales. Now, most PC hardware retailers don't give out their numbers. Fortunately for us, Mindfactory.de, which is one of the most popular PC hardware retailers in Germany, does. So as we go down to this, you can see right here, this obviously notating the launch of the Ryzen 3000 series. AMD sales flat out boomed to nearly 80%. This is a really big number. Of course, as you can see, for quite a while, AMD CPUs have been dominating, at least in Germany once again, but such a huge uptick. We can see right around here, Intel was coming back with 36% market share or sales with Mindfactory.de, but then once July rolls around, AMD just flat out skyrockets. And then in August, if we actually look, the R5 3600 itself sold, it almost looks like they sold more than Intel's entire CPU lineup, which is flat out insane. It at least does better than all of their i9 products. But of course, once again, this is just this one German retailer, but I don't think that we should expect to see a massive difference between this and most other markets. Now, of course, in the US, Intel is quite popular. We would see AMD's numbers go down a bit. It's clear AMD is doing really great. The next story for today brings us to Cerberus Systems. Now, you've probably never heard of them. I believe that they're fairly new. Either way, they do make AI chips. But what's really interesting here is that they actually recently created the wafer scale engine, or WSE. And this is basically an almost wafer scale processor. We're talking a massive processor here. And the reason why this is such a big deal, for those who don't really understand all of this, the bigger the actual silicon is and the bigger the processor gets as far as physical size, the lower the yields they get, so the more expensive it is. And the reason for that is really just because anytime that you have imperfections and things like that, you flat have to throw out the entire thing. So obviously the bigger a chip is, the higher chance that you're going to have imperfections, the higher chance you're going to have problems and things like that. What Cerberus has done, they've actually found a way to get over, even if there is an issue, they don't have to throw the entire chip out. Now, that's one of the things that they've effectively been able to do really well that we haven't been able to do for a good while, but there's a few other things. I'm not really going to go into it. Let's just say it's really interesting. We're talking 1.2 trillion transistors. Now compare that to AMD's recent EPYC processors at 32 billion transistors. It's a massive difference. And as we look down here, they're created on 12-inch silicon wafer. This is massive. We are talking 42,000 square millimeters versus Nvidia's largest GPU, which is 815 square millimeters. So we're talking a huge difference. And this actually is 400,000 cores. Of course, this is pretty much never going to be anything for the average consumer. This is more for cloud-based companies and things like that, but it's certainly interesting, and GPU manufacturers may be able to use this to make slightly bigger GPUs in the future, just try and kind of piggyback on this technology, but basically it is still really interesting. Lastly for today, we have a pretty big story once again regarding AMD. In a recent Linux driver patch that was deployed August 28th, there are hints that their next generation APUs, so I'm assuming 4th gen APUs, codenamed Renoir, anyway, it's gonna actually support DDR4X up to 4266 memory. And this is a really big deal because APUs, even more so than AMD's CPUs, are very much memory bound. I mean, you got to remember that they're talking between the GPU and the CPU for the Infinity Fabric, so memory is a really, really big deal. For one, there shouldn't be any need for that at their current speed, so I think this goes to show us that AMD is likely working on something like a 7nm APU with 7nm GPUs, so we're potentially talking Zen 2 here with their Navi GPU. So this is going to be a really big jump in performance of something that we really haven't seen, especially with AMD's APUs. So those who like to use their APUs with really small systems or relatively mid to low-end gaming PCs, this could really be great for you. So while that does it for today, once again, I do apologize. I know I do a lot of rambling and everything, but this was really interesting to me and something that I needed to get out and really wanted to get out. Once again, I'm actually on a ship right now. Hopefully I'll be able to upload this. The speeds are pretty horrendous. It'll probably take many hours, but either way, I do hope you liked the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and like it. Make sure to subscribe, and as always, have a great day.